And in fact, they are, because we rewire our brains every time we change a major communication system. And so going from oral to print, was monumental. So, that kind of thing was always a challenge in our listening sessions, because if your belief is that it's changing brain architecture and that's a terrible thing, then you're going to dig in pretty far. And if we say it's changing brain architecture, and isn't that amazing how we adapt to what's new and current and the power of these new tools, then we're not actually going to agree on that very easily.
Right.
That's that level of comfort in that mass amounts of uncertainty that can kind of provoke a lot. One thing so Chip recently was interviewed at the Chicago Tribune, so I was reading his interview, and you were talking about the emotional effect of it, and that's so close to just even what we've seen in the field, even when I was starting out and seeing it within my own family, how there was just kind of this emotional trigger that every time I would mention technology, young children, it was like, oh, what are you talking about? Oh, I don't like that.
It is more emotionally charged than you might think. I just know for myself, one of the things, because I did not grow up, I mean, my world was not technology, and so I'm learning all of this. And I just bought a car that got all kinds of technology on it, and I'm having trouble with it. I mean, it's just like it frustrates me. And but the bigger frustration for me is when I call the dealer and try to talk through some of these issues.
Yep.
He treats me like I'm an idiot, and blames a lot of that, I think, on my age. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not stupid, and shouldn't be this hard. And I'm yelling at my car, and that's not all that good.
I'm laughing because I've been known to yell at a car. The thing that's really interesting, my wife's a perfect example of this. Very bright, very successful healthcare professional. This stuff is not intuitive to her. It just is not. It doesn't fit comfortably into the way she thinks about the world. So I end up being a really horrible tech support person for her, because I can't see why she can't see what she's supposed to do. It's so obvious to me. And so, again, it's that notion of, kind of analog versus digital. And all of us adults are analog. We grew up in that world, and now we're having to adapt. But you hand an iPad to a 4-year-old, and there's no adaptation needed. Well, why is that? How is that possible? It's amazing to watch. So, yeah, we're having to adjust, and not all these things are as obvious or as easy.
Right.
And I'm always singing the praises of apps that help me organize my life and keep track of everything. And, if that's more work, which it would be for Maria, because it just doesn't happen naturally, then, you're not going to do it. That doesn't help you to have an iPad with a, Evernote on it if Evernote doesn't make any sense to you.
Right.
So it's interesting. I mean, I think we're in a big transition here, but I think the other risk, though, is we can't make the age assumption in either direction. We can't assume that a young early childhood teacher at 18 is tech savvy, and we can't assume that the 60-year-old early childhood teacher who's been with toddlers for 35 years is not.
That's right.
It's not as simple as that.
That's right. Well, we are getting close to 9 o'clock, and so I think it looks like we have a few people that still need to get on, but I think many of us are here. And I just want to welcome everyone. I hope that you have enjoyed the conversation that we've been having. I feel, one of the things as an educator, I love to learn from the best. I love to learn from the people who are entrenched in it, and that is our privilege this morning. We are going to get to hear and be a part of the discussion with Chip Donahue and Amanda Armstrong from the Erickson Institute in Chicago that is on the leading edge of technology in the early childhood field. And that is really one of the things that when Joyce and I talked with Chip and Amanda, that they talked a lot about that they are first early childhood professionals and then they are technology professionals. And as we become a coach, and we are the coaches for our child care providers and our parents that we're working with, but we really will be much more, I think, in the forefront of helping them deal with these issues that they need to deal with, because technology is here and it is a part of our life, and we need to help our young children know how to deal with that. Hopefully you have received the assignments, and many of you have completed those and sent them back to me, and I appreciate that. And I sent out yesterday the post assignment, which is a journal entry. And as I said in the outline, I want you to really think about what your thoughts about technology are, what your experiences are. But I also want you to make some comments and about the webinar today, what you learned, what you found fascinating, what you want to learn more about as we move into the second part of this Train the Trainer, which will be in February, on February 12th. And Amanda will be there at our live session. We'll spend all day Wednesday talking about digital media and early learning. And then following that live session, the third segment of this Train the Trainer will be the follow-up webinar, and that is on February 24th. It's a Tuesday, so please mark your calendar. And we will wrap up our conversations on early learning and technology. So it is 9 o'clock, and I don't want to take any time away from Chip and Amanda. I'm going to put myself on mute. Just my cell phone number is area code 931-307-3764. If you have any technical issues, or if you have any questions that you want to put forth, the easiest thing is if you text me. My phone is right here, and I will then get that information to Chip and Amanda if they need it, or I'll help you with your digital issues. Welcome, Chip and Amanda. We look forward to this hour.
Thanks, Mary Lou. On behalf of Amanda and I, we want to let you know that we think the privilege is all ours. This project that you're just beginning this morning to train the trainer and think about how you can help early childhood educators who are working directly with kids be more effective at choosing and using digital media. We think this is spectacular. We're so delighted to be part of it. So delighted you're here with us now, and thrilled actually that you'll get time with Amanda in Tennessee in the middle of all of this as well. I'm Chip Donahue. I'm the Dean of Distance Learning and Continuing Education here at Erickson, and I'm the director of our TEC Technology and Early Childhood Center. Edited a book that you are all familiar with as well, and I've been at this for a long, long time. My interest in technology and young children began in the early 80s when Apple IIe computers first went into preschool classrooms. So I've been thinking about this and tripping over it and trying to make sense of it ever since. I think we're getting to the point where we can tell you with confidence this morning what we know. We can tell you with confidence why it matters, but we're also going to share with you some of the questions that remain and try to engage you as professionals in the kind of the action research around what is working best out in the field. So let me let Amanda introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm the program coordinator for the Tech Center, and just to give you a little bit more of a background about what we do, we really help to support early child educators and parents use technology considering developmentally appropriate practice. So speaking to training the trainers, we're also people who train people who are in the field, so we do kind of understand some of the issues that you'll be experiencing and kind of what to look for when you're looking at how to help support these professionals use technology in their centers and their programs.
So a little disclaimer as we begin. Amanda and I both speak incredibly fast. So strap in, hang on, turn up the audio, get ready for a wild ride. We tend to go quickly. It's our natural rhythm. We also tend to go quickly because we get excited and we have great passion for this topic. So we're going to stay on camera, and the two of us will bounce back and forth along the way. But I just thought you ought to know just how fast this is about to go. Now, there we go. So just very quickly about Erickson Institute. We're a graduate school in child development. That's all we do. That's what we're all about, is about child development and parents and families and communities. Our vision is that every adult who works with young children or on their behalf will be knowledgeable, aware, skilled, and alive to the possibilities of each child's life. And we love those last words. Isn't that what we want from any adult, parent, caregiver, extended family member, teacher, to be alive to possibilities? And as we begin today, and as you begin this journey with us about digital media, we'd also like to challenge you to remain alive to the possibilities about this technology and how it can work. Whatever you're thinking as we begin and however you're feeling about this, stay open to hearing what we have to say and let's see where we can get to as we go forward. So I'm a senior fellow at the Fred Rogers Center, and this work in many ways has influenced my thinking about technology more than anything else I've ever done, and I'm sure you can imagine that if you think back to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Fred believed that we needed to use tech with rather than instead of, and he said this: we have to help give children tools, building blocks for active play, and the computer is one of those building blocks. No computer will ever take the place of wooden toys or building blocks, but that doesn't mean they have to be mutually exclusive. We love to start with that quote because of those last two words. One of the challenges in our field around technology is we've often gone to this false dichotomy of all tech or no tech, and that actually doesn't get us anywhere. All that does is polarize the conversation. It isn't about all or none. It's about how we use this well. And so we thank Fred for that starting point.
So we want to get you a little bit more engaged in kind of this conversation and find out what you're thinking about this as you're moving forward. So one question we have, and I know Mary Lou is going to set up the poll everywhere for you to answer this question and to think about, do you have a definition of digital media literacy? So just answer that question. Do you have a working definition? It doesn't have to be long or elaborate. It can be short and concise, but to think about, have you already started thinking about this and how you managed to define it? In the
I just lost it.
Uh-oh.
I don't.
That's right. We lose it all the time.
Okay.
It was here.
That's the joy of technology, folks.
Dashboard.
Well, the reason why we wanted to ask you this is I know that you have the pre-assignment and you have to read through the position statement. And this question kind of gets you to, gets you to revisit some of those information that you looked at in the position statement, as well as getting an idea of what you've been seeing in the field and how familiar you feel with these terms, even the term digital media literacy, because it's not something that's even very commonly used, but maybe you've seen digital literacy or maybe you've seen media literacy. And so just thinking about, if you put those two words together, have you thought about what you would look for, why you would define something like that?
I am so sorry. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We can.
That means all of us are in the same boat.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
This is a digital media literacy moment.
This is a digital media literacy moment, exactly.
It happens.
One aspect of digital media literacy is, what are you going to do when the digital media doesn't work?
Yeah.
Mary Lou, we'll just go on.
Okay. I'm looking because we have more polls, and I want to. I don't know where that screen. Uh-oh. See, what the problem is, then I start pushing buttons, and that's not good.
That's not good.
No.
All right, we're going to go on. You just jump in.
Okay.
And then the other question we have, which is fine if the pulse isn't working, is how would you rate the confidence in your digital media literacy? So this is something you can even reflect on right now. You don't have to necessarily respond to us, but how comfortable do you feel when you're thinking about digital media literacy, and how confident are you in your ability to support that for teachers, for parents,
All right, we're going to go on. Mary, if you get this one to pop up, just let us know.
I will. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. So the reason why we wanted to ask you some of those questions is to make you, help you to realize that your digital media literacy is important, that your ability to be able to use, integrate, and evaluate technology does matter, and it impacts how you're going to work and mentor teachers and parents in the future. So when we're thinking about your digital media literacy, we want to think about the ways that you're selecting, using, integrating, and evaluating technology and media in early childhood settings, and how you're helping to support teachers being able to do that. It's also gaining knowledge, skills, and hands-on experience, so becoming fluent with these different types of tools and interactive media. It's increasing your confidence and your competence, so that it's very intentional, so you're very thoughtful about the choices that you're making, that there's a purpose behind it, that there's reflection involved, that it's all part of a very thoughtful process. You're also thinking about the digital.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I found it. Do you want to do a poll? Or do you want to wait till the next one?
Maybe the one that we just did, where they rate their confidence in the digital media literacy.
That'd be great.
I am so sorry that... Okay, the poll's open, so if you would rate your confidence. And we have 23% voted, and we've got 76% saying somewhat confident. 69% voted, and we're at 73% somewhat confident. %82 have voted. I'm going to just give it a few more seconds. Put your vote in. Okay, I'm going to close and share the results. And the results are 9% are very confident. 76% are number 2, somewhat confident, and 15% are not at all confident.
Really interesting. I think it's really interesting that a lot of people are in neutral, but there are still people who don't feel as confident, but there are some people who feel very confident. So obviously we have a range of people who feel confident and comfortable, as well as experience in this area of digital media literacy, which is very exciting to have on this call. So another portion of, as we're moving forward and thinking about digital media literacy, thinking about that professional and personal use. So how much technology do you even use yourself, whether it's your smartphone, your laptop, your television, like all those different things do matter, because that helps to improve your technology literacy, and how can you use kind of that knowledge to help support your professional growth, and how do they work together. And also thinking about that digital media literacy is a continuum. So it goes from being a consumer to media, to being a doctor, to then an adapter, and then ultimately we want you to be able to be a creator.
I'll just, you can probably read on your screen, but the little cartoon down in the lower right. I don't know, Gary, they're not digital. It appears we're in some sort of undeveloped country. So digital cameras meeting canisters of film and not knowing who they are and not recognizing each other. It's just, I think, a nice nudge, a reminder that we have generations of technology just like we have generations of people.
And then your digital media literacy refers to your attitude, your knowledge, your experiences, and competencies together, which all leads to being fluent in digital media literacy. So we just, as we think about being fluent in another language, another culture, we want to think about digital media literacy as providing that opportunity for fluency. And that we want to look at for digital media literate educators to use the 4 M's, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth, but this applies to all teachers, whether you're trained, like you as being trainers, but also helping to support educators that are informal or formal, as well as parents.
And the fluency idea is really important because 21st century, Common Core, lots of things we're hearing about what we expect of young children, and one of those is technology fluency. And we're really struggling with how can kids get to be fluent in technology if the adults around them are not as well. So this is a call to action for all of us. None of us were born in the digital age. We all have experienced analog technology as we grew up. The kids being born today and in your child care centers in Tennessee are digital. We're born digital, so we've got some work to do. We think the good news is we've all got work to do. It's not any one of us. We've all got some things, some catching up and some understanding to do. I don't know if, how many of you remember the cartoon The Jetsons. I certainly grew up with it, and really I laugh about it because we are the Jetsons now. When we think about some of the technologies that they had, like video phone calls and that kind of thing back then, that seemed so futuristic, and now you're just a Skype away. I wanted to share a quote from a colleague of ours, Faith Rogow, who we think writes the most persuasively and thoughtfully about media literacy for very young children. She said this: media literacy is about helping children develop the life skills they need to become thinkers and makers in the multimedia environment that is their reality. It's precisely because our culture surrounds us with media that we need to model healthy and productive ways to integrate digital media technologies into our lives. I think Faith is also calling us out. This is not just an issue for kids, but the media is there. It's precisely because it's there that we have to take this on, that this is an important aspect of being an early childhood professional in the digital age. We always like to kind of welcome the concerns into the room. We won't spend a lot of time with this, and certainly when you're with Amanda, you can dig in deeper into some of these. But we're very aware of the fact that people have concerns. We think it's important as an early childhood professional that you, one, be aware of the concerns, two, understand your own concerns, and three, never ignore the concerns. All the work that we're doing is around what's best for children, not what technology is best. And so these concerns are important. So just very quickly, you can see them on the screen, but we're worried about too much passive and non-interactive use of technology. We're all, every one of us, is worried about exposure to inappropriate content, exposure that's easier today than ever before, because on a cell phone or a laptop or whatever, you're one Google search away from ending up really in the wrong place. We're worried about commercial messages and in-app sales aimed at children. It's not okay to prey on children, and it's not okay to sell kids products as they play, so we've got to watch that. We're worried about the negative impact on social-emotional development, that it can be socially isolating, that it interrupts the adult-child relationship. We actually love this bullet point because this is the work that we're most passionate about. It's kind of disproving this. Yes, this could be what happens, but we're finding ways to do just the opposite, and we'll share some of those as we go. But we actually think these are amazingly powerful tools for pro-social behavior and interaction.
Some of our other concerns are looking at if technology is going to take away from early childhood education essentials. So things that we value like hands-on, creativity, open-ended play, construction, manipulatives, all these sorts of developmental processes that children need to have in order to develop into holistic and healthy human beings. So, I mean, we're concerned about that, but there are ways in which we can use technology to actually help support these things, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're also concerned about it reducing time outside, physical movement, childhood obesity. Those are things that that can be attributed. It's very sedentary, but there are ways in which technology can be used to help us explore and go outside and move and do all these things. But it goes back to the idea of being very intentional about how we're using technology and what we're using. We're also concerned about it disrupting sleep, especially if the TV's on, the TV's in the children's bedroom, that it takes away from their sleep and they're not able to have that proper rest that they need. And also adult media use. We have to be concerned and looking at our own technology behavior, because we're also being models for that behavior for young children. So the concern is also stemming from us as well and what we choose to do and allow children to do, as well as our own behavior with technology.
No surprise, the most dominant role model for a child thinking about how they use technology is their parents. No surprise. We know that about everything, right? So, so we as adults, we need to be thinking about how we do it. I just want to make a quick comment about the sleep disruption. The research here is exploding, and it's very clear. And this is actionable, folks. You can help educators help parents with this. The research is very clear, and it's turning out it's not just for young children, that screen use, the closer the amount of time, less the amount of time before bedtime that you have screen use, the more likely you are to have sleep disruptions, nightmares, night terrors, inability to fall asleep. They're finding the same thing for those of us as adults who lay in bed and read on our iPads and are still, using that environment. So, this is simple. It's really simple. Just help parents understand they need to turn it off earlier in the evening, stop the screen time exposure earlier, maybe even read a story like we always used to do at bedtime. We need to think about that. We need to think about screens that are in kids' bedrooms. And, the American Academy of Pediatrics has talked about no TV in bedrooms for a long time, and we kind of get that. But now we live in this multi-screen age. So how are you going to control the iPad and the cell phone and the other kinds of screens? So a little sidebar there, but this is research that's directly tied to things we can help parents do to improve their child's lives. This is one we're having a lot of fun thinking about. Can the screen be a window, mirror, and a magnifying glass? I'm not going to go through all of the words on the page here. We just want to float this idea as we begin. Wouldn't we think differently about screen time if what the screen was a window to something beyond for a child, a mirror that reflects the child's own sense of self and interest, a magnifying glass to explore the world? These are things that we think are very positive and fit. So, we're just floating an idea here. We think it's interesting to consider. Our colleague David Kleeman said every window, architectural or electronic, is a gateway to adventure, inquiry, fantasy, storytelling, self-discovery, and learning. So think about screens as windows, and let's see where that gets us as we go on. We also want to talk about what we're calling the perfect storm, and again, these are resources that Amanda can share with you when she's with you, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on them. But 0 to 3 has just come out with a report about setting the record straight around screen time. This is the national organization around infants and toddlers, so it's a very influential report. The RAND Corporation has been looking at technology as a tool to bridge the digital divide. Common Sense Media has just come out with a toolkit for early childhood providers to help parents making good choices. We think that's great. We think the new book that Amanda's written a chapter for and that I edited is another important contribution. What's really interesting is that how screen time is being talked about in the popular press now is changing. Can you turn screen time into family time? Do we finally have common sense, science-based advice on screen time? Yes, your toddler can watch TV. New rules on screen time, written by a pediatrician, by the way. Kids and screen time, what does the research say?
So our goals for early childhood educators, so when we're thinking about using technology in these settings, some of the things that we want to think about is doing no harm, so making sure that we don't harm and young children, that we're always thinking about the child first, and we have that child first kind of approach, that we acknowledge and address the concerns. So as we're talking and as we explained before, we address a lot of the concerns that we have because we also share those same concerns, that we don't have that dichotomy of either or, that we think about it being a balanced approach, that we think about technology being integrated into early childhood experiences and to make them meaningful for both the adult and for the child, that we explore this intersection of child development theory, early learning, early literacy, and children's media. And that we're also focusing on our digital media literacy as well as helping to support those for early childhood educators, that we're using technology to be engaging and empowering because that's what we want children to experience. We want them to have those experiences, and so we can help early childhood educators think about how they can use that in their settings, and as well as parents. That we're promoting a healthy digital media diet, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically what that means. That we help parents establish the family media ecology, so how is technology being used in the home, what are the rules, what are the ways that it supports family life, and that we're using technology to support family engagement. So not only are we helping parents use it within the home appropriately, we're also helping educators use technology to support that homeschool connection, to keep that communication and help parents feel connected to early childhood programs.
I just wanted to add a comment about exploring the intersection. Mary Lou alluded to it in our introduction, but because we are of Erickson Institute, we're child development people. And we're really fascinated by technology. We're not technologists curious about kids, and that's a really important distinction for you to have. And all of you are early childhood professionals who are now curious about technology. That's the right order for this conversation. We start with what's best for the children, start with what we know best about child development, then we'll get to the technology. And then that may lead us to conclude that a particular piece of technology or a way to use technology isn't appropriate.
So in addition for our goals for educators, so know what matters and apply what you know. So we know what's important for young children. We know child development theory is important. We know that parents and culture and community matter, and they're a part of children's growth and development. We just know that these are true. We know that the work from the NAUSC Fred Rogers position statement takes all of that into account. Actually, it takes all the information from NACI, from Fred Rogers, and really applies that to best practice with technology and media. That we know developmentally appropriate practices work, and having a framework that builds on that for technology choices is appropriate. And that we have 40 years of children's media research. So we've been looking at television and how that's been used, and have a lot of research in that. And so we can really apply some of this information we already know into what we can use as best practice. We've also become 4M educators, so we help early childhood educators become 4M educators, know the 3 C's, and apply the 5 E's, which you'll hear a little bit more later, and also that being a connected educator matters. So developing your professional growth and development by connecting with others using these types of digital tools.
You know what's fun about connected educators, Amanda, is that's what we're doing right now. Right? This is an example of that. We're using technology to reach lots of people, share ideas, get information out there. You logged in, you connected to us, we logged in, we connected to you. This is a really powerful idea, and again, Amanda, when she's with you, will share more about that. But we think that's a very 21st century notion, and the tools are in our hands already to do that well. So let me just very quickly hit a few highlights from the position statement. As a senior fellow at the Fred Rogers Center, I was one of the co-authors of the statement. We worked for 3 years to develop the statement. It took 3 years because while we knew we'd never get complete consensus, we thought it was important to go out and listen, hear what the concerns were, hear what the excitement was, hear what people were interested in, hear the stories, and then fashion the statement. I say every time I talk about this that the group of professionals in our field who were always most mystified that there was any controversy at all were the assistive technology professionals who've been using technology as a tool to meet the needs of a particular child to reach a certain learning outcome that they couldn't understand why we were fussing about whether we do or don't use technology as a tool. Of course they do, and they have been forever. But again, back to those concerns, there are still folks in our field who are very concerned and aren't convinced yet that this is the right thing to be doing. We know that developmentally appropriate practice matters, and that from the position statement you can see the words on the screen. I won't read this long quote, but we believed when we were doing the position statement that the DAP framework was absolutely the foundation on which all of this was built. The last time NAUSC had updated its technology position statement was 1996. Think about that. Think about the technology changes since 1996. When we went back to look at the old statement as a starting point for the new statement, we assumed there would be very little there of interest to us or of value. In fact, most of it was of value because all of it was embedded in thinking about developmentally appropriate practice. This is something that teachers already know how to do. And since they know how to do it, thinking in that way around technology is not an unknown or a new idea at all. Just quickly, a couple of keywords. You can see them on the screen. If you accept the notion, our notion, that technology is a tool, then we actually think a lot of the fuss and muss goes away, because it's a tool like any other. It's a tool for teaching, a tool for learning, a tool for inquiry, a tool for discovery, and we have lots of things like that in the classroom, and teachers make decisions about them every day. We think intentionality is really critical. You have to know why you're using technology, not just what technology you're using. Appropriate, again, goes back to developmentally appropriate practice. Amanda will again, when she's got time with you, dig deeper into all of these things. These are keywords from the statement, but they've turned into kind of the rallying cries for what great practice looks like as well. When we see these things, that's what we see. Notice in the right-hand column, professional development. Well, again, that's what we're doing today with you. That's what you're going to go out and do with teachers, and it's a critical need. We've just all got a lot of questions, and we need some help with this. We think that all these keywords put together lead us to a really fascinating place in the digital age with educators who are curators of content and use and mentors for others. Those are big words and lofty ideas, but that's where we're headed. From the position statement, we said this: when used intentionally and appropriately, technology and interactive media are effective tools to support learning and development. I think those are powerful words, but I also think the opposite, we need to be aware that the opposite can also be true. When used unintentionally or inappropriately, we can't assume that the outcomes for children from the use of technology and media will be effective, will be positive, will support healthy development. Intentionality and appropriate use are the cornerstones of our whole approach.
So we've been talking a lot about the 3 C's, the 4 M's, and the 5 E's. So what are they actually?
Yeah, what are they?
And also, but we want to look at those 3 different types of frameworks of establishing kind of like what matters most, what you should look for. And actually, we're going to, for this specific webinar, due to time, we're really going to focus in on the 3 C's. We're going to allude a little bit to the 4 M's and the 5 E's, and we can talk. And we're actually going to talk about those a little bit more in the workshop and really a lot more in our post-webinar. So the 3 C's. The 3 C's were established by Lisa Guernsey in her book Screen Time, in which she talked about, she did some research on children's media and kind of what can we learn from what research and how can we apply it to her experience was as a parent, but really we've been able to resonate that not only with parents but early childhood educators. And the 3 C's she talks about are content, the context, and the child. And we're going to explain that a little bit more, but those are the 3 C's that you, when you're making your digital choices and looking at media, really looking at the content, so what is actually on the screen, the context, when it's being used, and the child, so who's actually using it.
And we would suggest, in addition to the activities and pre-activities that Mary Lou had you do, take this one away. Hold on to this idea. 3 C's: content, context, child. Content, context, child. Remember the 3 C's. It's a really simple way to take on a really complex set of ideas. We think it's brilliant, and we're always sharing Lisa's ideas with anyone who will listen to us, because we just think it's something that teachers can hold on to.
So the 4 M's, so digital age educators being 4 M's. So moving from being managers of media, so managing the type of technology and the media that's consumed, to being a mediator, so being more involved and engaged in that process, to being a mentor, so helping to guide that and being more of a facilitator, to being a maker, which is then being a creator of that. And then the 5 E's, so exchanging, so looking at more like kind of a substituting, so exchanging technology for another tool, enriching, so using technology to engage, to create these kind of richer media experiences. Then we're going to move to enhancing, so using it as a way to deepen learning and with using technology. Then extending, so creating a more thoughtful process about it, to being an empowering tool, so allowing children to be able to control their own learning. So that's another trajectory of thinking about how to move towards and build the digital media literacy.
And both the 4 M's and the 5 E's suggest this continuum and suggest at the top or the end of the continuum the best version of all this. But really, you could have any of these in action at any time. It may be as simple as just to take something out and add something in, and it's an exchange, and that's okay as long as that's what we know. And it's the same with, I don't evolve from being a manager of media. I'm always a manager of media, but I spend more time mentoring. So it's understanding that these are all in play all the time. And this work actually came out of the UK, had little to do with children's use of technology, and it's just a framework, again, like the 3 C's, we think is easy to grab a hold of.
So another opportunity for you to kind of share what you've been seeing in the field. So we you should have another poll question, and actually you have two. One is, what technologies have you seen used, sorry about the spelling errors, what have you seen used in the early childhood programs at the home? So you have a list of different options so in the poll, so just kind of giving us a glimpse of what you've seen being used there.
And I have launched that poll. It is open, so, and you can select all of as many of those that apply. So if you would just check the ones technologies that you have seen in early childhood programs or in family homes or in your own home. We have 64%. 79%, few more minutes or seconds, and I'm going to close. I've closed the poll, and here are the results. 88% have seen tablets and mobile multi-touch screen. 31% has seen interactive whiteboards. 78% have seen digital cameras. 94% have seen computer and laptop, and there were 13% that there were other media used. Now, would you like me to launch the next one? The teachers.
That's great if you could launch the next one. So the next question is, what have you seen teachers and parents using to guide their technology choices? There are a lot of things, and so we only had a few things. I'm sure that there are other guidelines, but the ones that we've shown you, kind of, what have you seen being used to guide their digital choices?
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to remark on the past poll, but please explain what you're seeing now.
Well, we've got 31% of people voting, and it will be interesting because as I was writing this out, I just thought I don't know how much any of these are being used.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's so many different frameworks, and so you know, like I didn't include, I think, the ISTE standards, which is something that is frequently used. But so there are a lot of different tools or things that are available out there, and there are some things that have been more recently updated than others. So it's just kind of interesting to see how what people are seeing in the field as they're doing these sorts of trainings.
we have 77% of people that have voted. I'm going to, here we go. They've got a few more people that were just takes a little bit. I'm going to close it and share you the results. 6% say NAEYC in the position statement. The Eckers are 53%, and that is one of the scales used in Tennessee. So 3% the BAS or PASS. 47% on quality rating scales, and I wish I knew what the other were, but 47% have other things that they've seen.
Others. Maybe in your post assessment, can you write down, if you were an other, what other sorts of tools that we use? Because I want to talk a little bit about them more in depth in the workshop. But I think it's interesting just to see what are the ways that people are using, and that we still need to do a little bit more work in promoting the NAEYC registered and position statement, because that's a really up-to-date resource that incorporates so many different sorts of thoughtful approaches to using technology and interactive media.
Ron, it reminds us that things like Eckers are these barriers, or are these ways to learn how to use technology well, and are we still struggling with older definitions of screen time? So, you know, again, the whole field is struggling with this as we go. Okay, so we've mentioned this before. Amanda and I are realizing that we've told way too many stories to get through all of this, so we're going to kind of stream through. Mary Lou, we'll make these slides available as a PDF for everyone as well, so you know that people can go back and look at some of the slides with more words on them than we take time to to talk about today, and again, a good review of that before Amanda arrives in Tennessee would be great. So we talked about content and how it helps kids and the context and where they're using technology. The unique child really goes back to developmentally appropriate practice. What do we know about this child's needs, interests, abilities, learning style, developmental stage, and then what's the right tech tool for the job? Content, again, some thoughts about content. One of the things that we've learned in the last 2.5 years since the position statement came out is everybody wants to talk about the devices and no one's talking about the content. So while an iPad is a very interesting thing and potentially powerful tool for teaching and learning, it's nothing but just a blank slate unless it's got good content on it. So understanding not just the device but the content, and ultimately the intersection between what the device is capable of doing, what's called the affordances, and the content is really, really powerful. But some things that we think are really important that you pay attention to are included here as well. Certainly supporting learning goals, understanding children's abilities, and understanding issues of diversity and a culturally appropriate and inclusive practice. Repeatable, we think, is actually one of the real powers of these things, that kids can go back and revisit their own work as many times as they want to. They can save it, they can share it, they can email it to their parents. This is an affordance of the device that we really need to tap into. And then this one is another, I think we said earlier, remember the 3 C's? Remember this one. Put this one in your memory banks for as you go out as trainers. This comes from the 40 years of media research. This isn't something we've just made up because we think it's interesting. It turns out from the research that what really matters, one of the things that really matters, is when kids get to be media creators themselves. Not just consumers of media, but really have control and can use the technology to make meaning in their world and to create new media. The images that we've chosen on the slide right now show a very simple version of media creation, which is a digital camera as a media creation tool and opportunity for a child. And if you look at the one to the right, where the young girl is showing the screen back to the teacher or the adult, she's created media and now she's sharing it. How powerful is that? So we think this is really a big idea. This is not minor at all. And with the growing interest in coding and ideas around programming and what kids need to know, those are media creation tools. We think that kids and very young children can be media creators as well, and it's an empowering opportunity. Amanda, I'll let you talk about context.
So context, so thinking about how and when it's being used, the environment that you have this media set. So children have to be, active in their environments, that we're thinking about ways of technology being able to support that and engage them in those meaningful experiences. And then we're also thinking about them using it with others, the important other, whether that's a parent, an educator, a sibling, a friend in school, in their classroom, but being able to use that to be able to share their experiences. And providing access to the quality media and the home requires us to all work together. So not only just using it in the school appropriately, but also in the home, also in informal learning settings, in children's libraries and museums and nature centers, and being able to use technology in these meaningful ways to help children be able to create media, to be able to tell their story, and able to learn new content.
Well, that last little bullet point about informal learning, this is really exciting, and what it's done for me, I've been in early childhood for a long time. I can't remember a time when we've had more of a collective conversation around anything than we're having now. Children's librarians, children's museum staff, zoo and nature center staff, out-of-school time program staff are wanting to be in this same conversation with us. I think that's a tremendous opportunity. Family child care providers are going to have a different perspective than someone working in a school, but they've also got technology in their homes. We just think there's a chance to leverage this to go, certainly to get out digital media, but to go beyond that, to start a conversation that can continue in a connected learning way. All right, Amanda, I'll let you.
So we're going to show you a short clip. This is a longer clip, but we're just going to show you about a minute of it. It's with teacher Yulise Zerowick. She's a preschool teacher, and she's using technology in her small group to provide an inquiry experience for its students?
I've been teaching for a few years, and I noticed that kids were interested in some of the topics that weren't necessarily part of our curriculum. They are choosing the topics that they want to research. So in the morning, we will come together, and I'll ask them. This week's topics were cats, dogs, and alligators. We work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as a small group, and on Friday, that's the day that we go public, which means we share the information that we learned throughout the week with one another. Now we're kind of trying to switch it a little bit. That's where we're going to bring in videotaping or using the iPads to kind of take pictures and then turn it into a story. So I think we're kind of learning how to make this work for preschoolers. The tail? That means the cat is very, very angry, and you better stay away from the cat. And
so we just wanted to show you a little bit of that. You can see more of that on our YouTube channel, or you can visit us on our Tech Center website to see the whole video. But this really talks about the importance of context, why using the technology and being thoughtful about it is important, because you can use it to support these experiences. So for inquiry is really important. So in this experience, we saw that the teacher was supporting what students wanted to know and creating within a context in which they could understand. That it also gave them new information, new ideas, and they had ways of showing that through other means. So we're also looking at supporting authentic learning experiences and thinking about how technology can be used. In this experience, we saw them using traditional marker and paper, but there are other tools in which they can use technology to convey their information and their understanding.
The important thing about inquiry in your thinking as you begin to think about how you help teachers with this is the open-ended, it's a tool for learning, right? It is no more obvious than this, we think. And actually, all the apps we look at, all of the things that we play with, we think this is where the action is, this is where the real power is.
Relationships matter, so we've talked about this a little bit before, but that we really want to have these experiences where they're using it with important others. So this idea of moving from co-viewing to having these joint media engagement experiences, which is multiple people using media together, so it doesn't necessarily just have to happen in a classroom. You can have it spontaneously in an informal learning setting or at home where you're using some sort of technology or media to use it to help support some sort of learning experience. And so that's something that we really want to make sure happens when we're using technology with very young children, that we're using it to help support these social emotional experiences, so that we're looking at their holistic growth and development, not just their cognitive development.
So here's the aha moment of the morning. When we gathered the top children's media researchers in Washington to tell us what do we know and help us understand what we don't know. The number one what we know about media and children is that relationships matter. Well, that ought to be actually comforting news to early childhood professionals. We already know that. We get that. This is what we're all about. And so, again, we think this is a bridge to helping folks really think differently about technology, not as a socially isolating tool, but in fact just the opposite.
And we also have to be mindful of the ways in which we model those experiences. So we need to be mindful of how are we supporting teachers and parents being able to set up those experiences so that it is for everyone, not just this isolated experience. So we want to make sure that we think about family engagement and how family engagement matters, that we're empowering parents to make these choices and to be thoughtful, to use technology to support their family goals, to support what matters to their family, that we are focusing on their family strengths and we're building their capacity, that we're being inclusive of all families, so making sure that everyone stays connected, that we're embracing the whole family. We have a lot of blended families. Families don't look the same as they have with nuclear families, so what are we doing to create that sort of experience where they feel connected and they feel capable of using media and technology in their home? We're asking them questions, so what are they learning? What do they want to learn? What would they like to learn more about? And getting feedback from them so that we can help improve their practice. So when you're talking with families or when you're talking to early childhood educators, making sure that you make family engagement, encouraging them to make family engagement a part of their program.
And to understand these new tools actually give them real exciting opportunities to engage. Meet parents where they are. If families are using these tools, then we got to get to those places and engage them in that way.
So speaking of what she was talking about, so we're thinking about programs that offer parent workshops in the school, that we're connecting parents with online resources, with groups. There are all sorts of different blogs, social media tools they can use to connect with other parents, that we're using tools to connect with parents to build that communication. So whether it's through a text message, a blog post, an email, there are so many different forms of communication you could use with technology, and what's the best way that works for the early childhood programs that you work with, but making sure that they're aware of those options. Having them have play dates with parents, as well as being connected with other educators.
So homeschool connection really is a subset of family engagement, right? It's about how do we improve the communication. And again, I won't go through these, but we would argue, positively argue with you, that these tools really open up new possibilities. Text messages to parents, emailing a photo the child takes, ways for us actually to really tap into media they're using, to empower them to use the media to communicate with us and back and forth. We've got a couple of really nice chapters in the book around family engagement and homeschool connections, and we're seeing more practice being developed around this. We know how to do these things. We just have new tools to do them in many ways in a more accessible way. We know that child development theory matters. What we know about how children grow, develop, and learn makes a big difference. And, of course, this is the underpinning of developmentally appropriate practice. And so we've got to understand all of that. The little illustration on the right, what would Montessori, Piaget, Vygotsky, and Skinner say, comes from a chapter in our book where Warren Buckleiter of Children's Technology Review asked the question, what would Maria Montessori say? And then went on in a very clever way to imagine what these theorists would have to say in today's age. I think that's actually a very, very useful activity for people to engage in, to imagine from their perspective what people would do. So just an important reminder that all of this in the end is based on child development. Okay, Amanda?
So the essentials that we talked about earlier about child development, so what do we consider the essentials, and how do we want to make sure that technology and interactive media used within the context of learning is helping to support that? So I'll just look at some of them. So creativity, curiosity, and being able to wonder. So to build those inquiry experience, to make sure that children be able to express themselves, to be creative, that they have these tools as a way to explore their environment, to explore meaningful learning experiences within the context of their classroom or at their home, that it can help support their play experience. So whether it's dramatic play or another type of play, that we're thinking about and providing those opportunities for us to use technology to support that. That it's hands-on and engaging, that it's authentic, so it's within a meaningful learning context for them, that we use it, again, to go outside, to experience nature, that it's a shared experience, as well as it can be something that they do those inquiry experiences on their own, but we have these sorts of a balanced approach to how are they using technology and media, and that we also make sure that there are interactions with others.
Love the picture on the upper right. Isn't that great? Tea party with my cats, my dog, and my stuffed animal. I just think that's a wonderful, reminder of what play can be for a child, and whether technology fits or doesn't fit in that is up to us and up to the child.
So this video, I'm not going to play it here. I'll actually play it at the workshop due to time. But this is one of our teachers, Erin Stanfield, who we have some clips of her on our website. But in this particular one, she's talking about the use of digital cameras to help children understand feelings and explore feelings. So in this way, it's just another form of technology being used to help support social, emotional, and development. This, in this capacity, it's to help support their emotions and their self, and to really dive deep into that sort of exploration. So there are different ways that we can use different tools to use different things. It's just really understanding what is the experience we want to offer the child, what is the learning that we want to offer. And so when you're working with teachers and parents, it's helping them to start with where they are, what is their pedagogy, and finding ways to use technology to help support their pedagogy.
So here's your challenge in Tennessee. We've been slowly finding these innovative teachers, early adopters who are doing great work with media and learning with and from them and engaging them in our work as well. As you wander around the state of Tennessee and you get into centers and you see what's going on, look for those stars. Who's doing really interesting work? Put the spotlight on them in the way that we have for Aaron and Delise and others, so that the teachers can start to learn from other teachers. We just think it's a powerful bit of role modeling and mentoring that can happen.
So when you're thinking about applying the 3 C's to the field, so when you're helping teachers and educators, just some ideas to keep in mind. So to help them use technology to use the 3 C's to build their technology framework, to also use that within their forms of documentation. So in some of the examples that we see here, we have the digital camera is actually being used to take a picture of a journal entry about the document camera. But that's a way for us to be able to think about, it doesn't have to be that balanced or isolated experience too, but we can also use tech tools like a story kind of app to be able to explore that we help teachers and parents think about using technology as a tool for communication and also reflection. Reflection both on their practice and reflection as well as help in the form of helping children develop their metacognitive skills.
So we mentioned this phrase earlier, healthy media diet. Well, what do we mean? This is what the tech center, this is what Chip and Amanda think it means, but it's open to lots of interpretation. The first thing is we have to accept that all screens are not created equal. A television set is not the same as an iPad, is not the same as a computer, is not the same as a digital camera. We have to think about them differently. The challenge for early childhood educators today is that we have to think about screen exposure throughout the day and across settings. It's not just what they do while they're with you in your center, it's where else are they seeing screens, where else are they having screen time. We really need to shift the conversation away from how much are they watching, which is time bound, to what they're watching, which is content and engagement bound. And the American Academy of Pediatrics are starting to really look at how do we shift that conversation, because maybe this just strictly 15 minutes is the limit doesn't serve us very well in this interactive media age. We want to, as we started with from Fred, use media with rather than instead of. It's not a displacement, it's an enhancement. We want to place limits on passive use. We really want to tap into the interactive nature of these tools. But I always want to remind us, too, that there's none of us on this webinar today that haven't had a moment where we just turned the TV on and wanted to just sit back and let it wash over us because we just didn't want to have to think much or do much. It's okay. I'm not saying no, right? We have to be careful about that. But we do want to replace a lot of passive use with more interactive. And then, of course, as we said earlier, the content and the commercial messages need to be okay. We need to look for media experiences that are interactive, that include interactions with others, that give the child some control, continue to emphasize relationships and joint engagement with media. Here's what I talked about just a moment ago. We need together as a field to advocate for a digital age definition of screen time that works for all of us, from the American Academy of Pediatrics to Caring for Our Children to ECHRS to quality rating scales, accreditation, teacher preparation. We're all talking about it in different ways, and in many cases we're talking about it in an outdated way based on one child and one television screen that's not serving anyone particularly well.
So as we're moving forward and as you are going to be out in the field now, so we're really hoping that you take the lead in building your digital media literacy so that you can help others, help educators and parents be able to do that. So 3 things to just do to build that. Be willing to take risks. So it's okay to fail. As we saw today, like sometimes you will have issues with technology. I can tell you countless times we've done presentations and something has happened. So that is just a part of the experience. That we're using digital tools to support our learning, to support our professional growth, so that we're not just using it to help train, but we're actually incorporating it in our lives and finding meaningful experiences. And that way we can authentically convey that technology and digital media literacy is important. And have fun. As it's so important to just have fun with others, just sit down, have a play date. It can be spontaneous, share different apps, try different things, mess up a little bit. But you wanted this to be a fun experience so that when you're training parents and teachers, it becomes a fun experience for them.
Here's the deal. If I want an early childhood educator to use technology playfully with kids, they've got to have a chance to use technology playfully before it's with the kids. And we don't do that very well in this field. And how many technologies have we gone through where just we put the computer in the classroom, don't train the staff, and expect them to do amazing things? And even today, how many one-to-one iPad programs are out there where we're putting an iPad in the hands of every child, which is good news for the children, but we haven't given the staff time. So again, I think I started with this notion, but as we get near the end, we'll say it again. This is what you're taking on in Tennessee is fantastic and can be a model for others. It's a very intentional version of we've got to learn what to do, we've got to learn how to do it well, we've got to get the word out there. We celebrate and thank you for that. We think that's really, really important. But again, I think if the trainers are going to get the teachers to have fun, then you all need to have some fun too. That's the deal. That's the rule.
It's okay to laugh.
It's all right. It's okay to not know what to do. Why is it that when you hand an adult an iPad, they don't know what to do, and when you hand a 3-year-old one, they're already busy getting going? So, it's okay. You're not going to break it. Just jump in. So I'm going to end with 2 quotes from Fred Rogers that we think pull us all together. And again, if you grew up with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, or if you grew up knowing a little bit about Fred Rogers, you know what he was all about. You know that he took on the technology of his day, broadcast television, as a tool for social emotional development and empowerment and communication and interactions. How is this man who was on TV, how is he able to get kids all across the country to answer him out loud when he would ask a question? Because he genuinely communicated that he wanted to know what they thought and that it mattered, and he left time for them to respond. So this was maybe the most intentional educator I've ever had a chance to learn about and learn from. And so we're loving connecting his message and his approach to the digital age. So Fred said this: computers can be useful machines, especially when they help people communicate in caring ways with each other. So yeah, there's a place for technology, but the technology really becomes exciting when we use it to connect. Isn't that's so Fred? And then we think this is a great place to end. Let's not get so fascinated by what the technology can do that we forget what it can't do. It's through relationships that we grow best and learn best. And that's about as Mr. Rogers as we can get. And it's about as Amanda and Chip as we can get. It's not about the technology. We've just spent the last hour actually talking about healthy child development and early learning. Oh, and by the way, technology. So keep that in mind, that the order of technology in our hierarchy is very clear, and it was certainly clear for Fred as well. What's on the screen now as we wind down are just some of the resources that we enjoy and use and have shared. You can see the book that I edited, and you can also see Fran and Karen's book, Digital Decisions, both of which I believe you have access to and will be using. The thing that strikes me whenever I show this is that the only book on this screen that existed when the position statement came out was Lisa Guernsey's Screen Time in the lower right. Everything else has come out since 2012. It just shows you the explosion in interest and desire to know more. And finally, we'll leave you with some thoughts about our playmates, our digital playmates, our connected learning opportunities. These are just some of the folks. And again, when Amanda's with you, she'll share some resources and some one-click access to a lot of these folks. But if we want to know what's going on, this is where we go. And many of them would say to you, well, the tech center is where to go if you want to know. And that's the beauty of the reciprocity that's happening right now that we're so much excited to be a part of. So thanks so much for being with us. I think we're almost to the tick of the clock. Please visit us at the Tech Center website. Amanda's been working tirelessly to create a new website that we think is as good as anything out there, and that is just loaded with stuff that teachers can use and that you can use as trainers of teachers. So please come and visit us. Amanda, we'll see you in Tennessee soon.
Very soon, next month. I'm really excited to really build on what we've been talking about now, as well as getting you some of those hands-on experience that you'll need to help prepare you for working with educators and parents in the future. So be prepared to have fun and laugh and take risks and connect with others, because that's what we're going to be doing.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And just a reminder, your post assignment is a journal entry where you reflect upon how technology has impacted you and how you see it impacting your world, but also to make some comments about what you learned today and what you found fascinating. And as Amanda mentioned, as we did those polls when I finally got that together, there was so many things on the other that you see being used in childcare technology-wise, or the other things that are directing how these things are being used. And if you would make those kinds of reflections in your journal, I am going to share these with Chip and Amanda as they develop stronger what we're going to be doing in February and also the post follow-up webinar. So know that I will be sharing those with them and to give them some insights into what would best help us. I did have a question. Actually, two people asked, again, just verifying that they would have access to the PowerPoint. And if they go to your website, they will find this PowerPoint. Is that correct? Or will you send me the PDF?
Yes. Give about 24 hours, and it'll be posted on our website, but then I can also send you a PDF for the link as well.
Okay, but I do encourage you to go to their website. You need to do that. It is fascinating what's there. So thank you for this first step in our journey as we, as educators and coaches across Tennessee, are looking at technology in the early childhood field. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for this beginning.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.